Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to welcome you here at the Hub Events venue for today's event, which is titled "Data in the New Capital," jointly organized by Unisystems and Compellio. The event is live streamed and also recorded on the YouTube channel of Unisystems. Well, as we will begin to explore the world where data meets cutting-edge technology, Web 3.0 is clearly transforming the internet from a centralized structure to a decentralized one. We see individuals gaining control over their data. The evolution, or this evolution, coupled with application of tokenization technology and the advance of Gen AI, creates opportunities for enterprises and organizations, while at the same time reshapes boundaries of trust and creating new definitions of ownership. One could say that we're witnessing a paradigm shift. Is this really the case? Let's embark on this journey for the day and find out. Before I call the stage our first speaker, I would like to inform the audience, live and remote, that they have the opportunity to place their questions during the speeches over our platform. In fact, you can actually scan the QR code, which is on the screen and also on the sides of the room, and you can place the questions. The questions will be answered at the end of the second session of today's event on the Q&A. So, without further ado, I call forth Mr. Adonis Kassano, Head of Innovation at Unisystem.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry. So, it's a pleasure to welcome today to today's event where we explore into a topic of profound importance: the transformative power of data as the new capital in shaping economies, societies, and innovation. Data is no longer just a resource. It's the cornerstone of a new business, foundation of new business model. Yet in Greece, as in much of Europe, we have not managed to fully harness the potential of data. And we are keeping more and more on the traditional way of exchange data. Keep it silo and exchange with APIs. While functional, this is insufficient to meet the demands of tomorrow, challenges and opportunities. Data space and tokenization are reshaping this landscape. These technologies enable a shift from isolated data exchange to collaborative ecosystems where data is securely utilized while remaining protected. Tokenization, in particular, transforms data into assets, redefining how we manage rights, access, and ownership. This opens doors to innovative business model and creates exciting opportunities in data monetization and cross-sector collaboration. We are also at the dawn of the AI era, where data is the lifeblood driving intelligent systems. Artificial intelligence enables us to unlock unprecedented insights from data, automate decision-making, and create value at scale. The convergence of AI, data space, and tokenization marks a new era for opportunity. For example, AI in data spaces, analytics within federated ecosystems can identify patterns, optimize operations, and enhance decision-making across industries like healthcare, energy, and transportation. AI and tokenization. Tokenized data can serve as a foundation for AI models, ensuring that data inputs are traceable, trustworthy, and ethical source. And of course, AI for collaboration. By integrating AI into data-sharing ecosystem, organizations can co-create innovative solutions such as predictive maintenance in energy grids, personalized healthcare, or dynamic urban planning. In this journey and this exchange, Compellio, organizer of the today events, plays a pioneering role in this evolution with their expertise and their cutting-edge tokenization gateway technology, tailored to the needs of the emerging Web3 era. By converting data into assets, Compelio solution provided a trusted and scalable framework for building future-ready ecosystems that drive innovation across industries. However, realizing this vision requires more than technology. It demands forward innovation thinking, collaboration, and ecosystem-wide partnerships. Governments, private enterprises, academic institutions, and technology providers must align to establish frameworks that promote trust, transparency, and sustainability economic growth. This is where Unisystem steps in. As a leading enabler of innovation, Unisystem goes beyond technology implementation. We work closely with our ecosystem of partners, clients, and collaborators to deliver impactful solutions. With deep expertise across critical industries and a commitment to progress, we are striving to unlock the full potential of data for the benefits of business and society alike. Today's events embodies this shared vision. We are honored to have with us highly respected experts who bring diverse perspectives and expertise. Mr. Dr. Thomas Harjono, CTO of Connection Science and Engineering at MIT, who will explore the relationship between technology and trust. Mr. Dr. Athanasios Thanopoulos, President of the Hellenic Statistical Authority, who will discuss the vital role of data in governance and decision-making. And Dr. Dionysis Arvriotis, CEO of Compelio, who will share insights into the role of tokenization in building scalable ecosystems. Their insights will illuminate how we can collectively harness the potential of data, transform into valuable assets, and foster the innovation needed to create value and drive economic growth. Thank you for being part of this important conversation. It's now my honor to introduce the first speaker, Mr. Thomas Harjono, who will discuss building trust in the digital age. Thanks a lot.
Okay, is this working? Try again. Oh, I'm sorry. We're looking for the right button. Anyway, while we're looking for the file, I just wanted to say thank you for being here. Particularly, I thank Unisystems for hosting this, Dennis for organizing this. I thank you to Dr. Thanopoulos, who's going to co-present with me today. Happy to be in Athens. This is, by the way, my first time. I was telling the guys, this is my third attempt to come to Greece. The previous two events, I was telling it ended up the students. So typical thing is I will have a conference, say in Athens, I have a paper, and then the week before, my boss, the professor, said, no, you cannot travel, you have to be at MIT because we have visitors. And so then I find a PhD student who says, here's the slides, here's the plane ticket, and here's the hotel booking, go, right? And the students have a good time because, they attend the conference 1 or 2 days and then they, take the rest of the week in a vacation. So third time is the charm, as they say in English. So yeah, happy to be here. Oh, let's try it.
We'll fix it now.
So it has display mode, yeah. But anyway, while this is a bit of background about myself, so although I'm at an academic institution, MIT, I think of myself as an industry person. I spent the first 21 years of my career in industry in Silicon Valley, working for different companies. Bay Networks, for those who remember that, which became, the big telco company, Nortel, Cisco Systems, VeriSign, Network Solutions. These are the people who built the internet infrastructure. And then the joke is, I said to my wife, oh, these academics have a very easy life, They come up to the university at 11 a.m. and they go home at 2 p.m. I need an academic job, right? So then my friend at Intel in Portland says, hey, the MIT people are looking for somebody to run this MIT Kerberos project, which is an authentication software. So I said, yeah, that can 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. is a great lie. So I convinced my wife to say we'll leave sunny California and move to snowy, cold, freezing Boston. I said, just 2 years. I said, so I said, okay, 2 years. So then 2 years became 5 years, became now at MIT almost 15 years. But a huge part of my role is actually engaging with the corporate sponsors, because our group is 100% funded by corporations. I gave up applying for government grants because it's too much paperwork, quarterly reports, quarterly meetings, right? So anyway, so I'm going to talk about the importance of data. You're well aware how important now mobility data is. Our group is called Connection Science because we are trying to understand the social behavior of people in communities based on data, right? So the difference is, I'll talk a bit about that. This is our group. This is our founding faculty director, Professor Sandy Pentland. He is one of the 3 co-founders of the Media Lab, if you know, back in '84. So he's been MIT grad, been MIT almost over 40 years. A number of our corporate sponsors you recognize, AXA is based in France, Swisscom in Switzerland, Airbus. More recently, I've been working with Sanofi, and I'll talk about why this is important from a data sharing, the insight sharing perspective. This purple report from the World Economic Forum and then the UN, some of you may have seen this. This is the first time back in 2011 that personal data is being recognized as a digital asset. Right? Previously, people didn't care about personal data. Now people, well, and I think many of the recommendations of the report made it into the GDPR, the European GDPR, and so it's full loop now. Now the GDPR is having influence on the US, the way people perceive privacy in the United States. It has tremendous impact on Australia, so I'll talk about Australia. Many of the principles within the GDPR has literally been copied over into the privacy regulations of different countries. So it's a very good development. So this is our role and mission of Connection Science. Just a bit of advertising. So definitely data. We're a group that focuses on data and uses of data. We're looking at the idea of data networks because what's becoming clear is that data will be stored at different repositories, right? So 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, many companies in the United States would like to hoard data. They grab data, they buy data, they put it in the warehouse, and they don't even know what it's for. And when you ask them, why are you putting terabytes of terabytes in your data lake? The answer is, well, we don't know, maybe in the future there's a need. Okay, now it's completely changed. Now, in the United States, data is liability. Particularly under the California law, if a company is holding my data, I have the right to ask them, do you have a copy of my data or not? What is it for? Where did you get it from? And to be able to answer that question costs a lot of money for many companies. So now companies don't want to hold data. What then is happening is different industries are basically locking up data into silos. And I'll talk about the Web3 decentralized data model, or what we call data networks. And of course, this is very important for us, privacy first, because citizens and communities need to have, they need to benefit from the use of their data, right? So again, complete change. How do we empower individuals to obtain benefits, either monetary or indirectly services, from the use of their data in a privacy-preserving manner? So, computational social science. So this is a new subfield that my professor there, Sandy Pentland, co-invented by mistake. So this is about 15 years ago. This paper is quite a famous paper here. So in previous non-pre-digital world, social sciences, everything from political science to urban design, city design, was based on theories or thesis without data, right? So the ability now of credit card data, mobility data, transportation data provides solid input to argue your thesis. So if you have a thesis that you need to build a 5-kilometer freeway from A to B, well, show me the data. Okay, if you want to build a particular building in this manner, how is it going to impact the environment? Show me the data, right? So this is, and in our work, the primary types of data that we use are location data, GPS data from telco companies. These are anonymized data, credit card data, which shows spending data, and also sometimes what we're trying to look for is trends, right? We're not looking for individuals. We're looking for, well, what is the trend happening in Athens? What is the trends happening in purchases during Christmas? Why is this particular product popular before Christmas? Why are people traveling to this particular shopping center 2 weeks before Christmas? Right? These are trend questions. And for many data scientists, for many government organizations, town halls, officials, they want to see trends going forward. So these are some of the challenges. How do we convince, I'll get out of the way, how do we convince the citizens and communities to make their data accessible in a privacy-preserving way? Because right now in the United States, there is absolutely no trust. I mean, for those on YouTube, you know all about this. I mean, companies like Google and so on, Meta, they're having trust issues because societies in the United States are getting tired of the data being used without them getting any benefit. So what are the alternative models? We've been looking at data cooperatives. Data cooperatives is like a farmer cooperative where individuals would put their data together and allow computation to be shared. So here, the 3 themes I'd like to get across today is that you need to have means to share data by way of sharing insights. You don't want to share raw data, you want to share insights. Data is increasingly going to be distributed because people are locking away data, so it's silos. With medical data, financial data, so now we have a distributed, physically distributed model. The third issue is, fine, we have AI, so AI needs data, everybody's going crazy, well, AI is going to take over the world. No, AI is not going to take over the world. Why? Because AI needs good data. In fact, the challenge now in many enterprises in the United States, these are non-tech companies, right? Forget the big guys because they have been doing AI for 5-6 years, but think of a financial institution. They want to run their own AI algorithms to create their own models and to do fine-tuning. They have difficulty finding quality data. So if you go to any financial, I challenge you, even maybe in Europe, you go to any institution, you ask them, where's your data? Where did you get it from? Who are the engineers or scientists that put the data there? Most companies don't know where their data comes from, right? So because if you have data of poor quality, then the models that's being generated by the training phase of AI is also going to be poor, right? So anyway, data banks is very popular in Japan. So the Japanese talk about data banks. They talk about interesting data free flow for trust. So if you Google that, the premier, the previous prime minister or the head of Japan, he came up with this word DFFT, data free flow with trust. And what he means is that within Japan itself, they would like to have access to different data repositories in a trustworthy manner because the government there knows that they need to have some kind of a computation capability on these data stores to make use of the data. So this is, and of course, EU data spaces, you are very familiar with this concept, very similar. You would like to have different countries be able to share insights, right? So this is going to be a challenge. I mean, are you happy? Do you feel comfortable if some other country in the European Union is accessing your raw data in the databases in Greece? And I know the answer is no. You're not going to be happy with that. So what's the solution? You want to allow them to run questions. So you write the questions. A typical question would be, tell me the age, tell me how many people in medical question, what percentage of people under 35 in Athens has got type 1 diabetes? Very simple question. Just one answer. Just give me a percentage. Today it's very difficult to do that, right? Now, if and you as a EU member, you can ask the same thing, same question: what percentage of people under 30 in Germany have type 1 diabetes, right? And you might ask the interesting question: well, how many people in Germany between age 25 and 55, consume olive oil on a weekly basis, right? You'd like to know that because that's part of your business exports, right? So in order to have this reciprocal relationship, you have to have data architectures that are interoperable across Europe, right? This is the thing. This is where Compelio, has been working on this problem for a couple of years. The next thing is digital identity. You guys are very familiar with IDES in Europe. There's an IDES version 2. What we have found is that the ability to have digital identity for citizens enables new services to be delivered for those citizens. And in turn, that enhances GDP of certain communities up to 13%. And this is data from McKinsey. Now, I like to quote the example of India. So if you Google India Stack. So India had about 500 million people who are poor in the villages, which the polite term of referring to these people are the unbanked, the non-banked. So what they did was they created a digital identity system called Aadhaar. That's essentially a 12-digit number that identified every person. So that's step one. Step two, they created a low-cost, almost zero-fee payment mechanism called UPI, the Universal Payment Interface. So layer one, digital identity. Layer two is UPI. That means that a woman in the village, before digital identity, she would need to walk up to the local shop maybe an hour to borrow $2, only $2, we're not talking big amounts, $2, sub $5, to buy goods, to trade in the marketplace. And in the afternoon, she had to walk another hour to return the $2, okay? With this Aadhaar system and UPI, she could do that from home, not even with a smartphone. This is ordinary phone. So she saved 2 hours every day that she could spend with her family, right? So how did this work? And we can talk about this. This is, and India's a champion of this. It's called DPI, Digital Public Infrastructure, which is a government-private sector collaboration where the government sets regulations, the government sets technical standards, and then provides policies, and then the government gives it to the private sector, say, run this, right? Now for UPI, they made it a rule that if the lending is, if the transaction is sub $2, there should be no fees, right? Because what they were afraid was the Visas and the MasterCards of this world will come to India and charge 4% for a $2 transaction. Come on, right? No sane person will accept that. So so this is now the third stack, the third layer that India is working on is now data, which is where we are today. So one of the important things with data now is that how do you enable access, computation to data and insights that would specifically help businesses? It's one thing for the local government to do it. It's another thing for the same insights to be available for businesses. So this is a map of Adelaide in South Australia. So the Premier, the Governor of Adelaide, invited our group there in 2019, and they had interesting basic questions. We met with the Governor all the way down to the city people, particularly there was a woman who was basically the head of the city, and she needed basic stats. She wanted data like how many tourists are coming to visit South Australia, where are they coming from, are they domestic, are they international, how much are they spending, where are they spending, what kind of services can the government improve to help tourism, because tourism is a big deal here. The second big industry is wine, the wine exports. And so we came in and helped them provide this model whereby we collected basic statistics, and you can click on different parts of the map to understand, this particular suburb is, consists of young families, there's too many pizza stores, no health stores, there's no vegetable stores, That's a place that the government would come in. During COVID, we had to work remotely. They came back with a question. So they wanted to put 100 different COVID vaccine stations, the mobile hospital thing, in big trucks, white trucks. Question is, where do you put it, right? Do you have 100, but where do they go? Because no one was coming into the city because it was COVID. So we looked at the analytics and recommended a number of area spots. This intersection, that particular place, that particular park, close to points of interest, because the POIs, points of interest, are the places where people would come in and congregate, right? So throughout all of this, the requirement was data privacy. So you need to be able to provide insights without access to the raw data. Right? And we can talk about the technology to do that. So then the next thing that they looked at was, how can we tokenize money? And this resulted in this piece we wrote for Barron's, where we said, look, the way things are going, the world will need a new Bretton Woods, because you need to recognize that payments are going to go all digital. Right? And so what kind of infrastructure will you be needing for this type of world? Now, in the United States, there's slowly an acceptance of what is called CBDC, central bank digital currencies, at the wholesale. So this is interbank. Right? Why is this important? Because it reduces transaction settlement time from 3 days, well, 7 days to 3 days, down to 1 day. And the ultimate goal is to be under 30 seconds settlement, right? This is kind of the goal. Fingers crossed, we see how that happens. But this is why, if you look at the pattern, there is digital identity, this India, and then there is payments, right? So who are you? How do we trade? That's the question, right? How do I pay you? How do I pay me, right? The next question is data. Well, what can I learn about you so that I can engage you with offers, or at least understand where the market is going, right? This is why data is. Now, I'll talk about medical data because it is very important. So in all of this, there's this question of tokenization. So make it very simple. Tokenization means that how can you make the rights to the data or ownership to the data portable, right? So if I have medical records and I want to make it accessible to Sanofi, I want to make it accessible to a cancer research institute, can I use tokenization to allow them to access it? Right? This is one of the challenges. Now, we have people from the art industry and collections. This is super important, right? So you could probably tell me what painting. This is a Goya painting, I think, in Madrid. She's also a collector, right? So I just remember this is a Goya. It's actually bigger. How do I know this is genuine? Right? How do I know this is real? How do I know that you're the owner and not this other person? Right? So this is work. Actually, this is work in the IETF that Dennis and Compelio is championing, because we need standards to define what this is, what is the token format, where do I find the data, the metadata that supports the claim that this particular token belongs to this collector. Right? Because she can say, well, I own a Goya, here's my Goya, and you say, well, how, did you steal it? Right? Where did you get it from? Right? This is as a buyer, I want to know that. We don't have the infrastructure today to do this. If museums want to borrow, we talk about the Louvre in Abu Dhabi. If you go to Abu Dhabi, I was there 3 weeks ago, you walk through the Louvre, you see the pieces there from Louvre, Paris, right? And so I think, well, that's interesting, right? So that works because they're sister organizations. But for example, if the Met in New York borrows a painting from a museum in Greece, when it comes back to Greece, how do you know it's authentic? It hasn't been swapped, in the back warehouses in New York with a fake one, right? This is part of this problem. So don't want to get too confused here. This is too technical, but the idea is that we will need distributed registries, decentralized registries, to hold this type of information, not just for artwork, but anything that's tokenizable. So who is going to run these registries? Right? We don't know. This is part of the interesting challenges with Web3. So, third topic is how do you obtain benefits from these sharing of the insights? So people like to say monetize. We don't say monetize anymore in MIT in the US because monetize is a dirty word. Like we don't say, oh, we're going to monetize your data. Everybody knows you need data. Everybody knows you need to use the data somehow to make benefits for companies, communities, individuals. So we've been saying, well, instead of moving the data, why don't you move the question? So you send the question. It could be a Python, you guys know, it could be a question in SQL, like I said before. What is the percentage of people under 35 in Athens having type 1 diabetes? That's the question. You can write it in English, you can write it in any language. That question needs to go to the hospital databases, a lot of them, in Athens, in Greece. Well, do I send it 10 times to 10 different institutions? Or is there an architecture, future architecture where these are federated? Now, if I can ask one question, that means I can ask multiple questions to the same federated model. That brings in the question of AI and machine learning. Can I do training on these 10 databases so that if a doctor then, local doctor, asks the databases, hey, what is the trend for type 1 diabetes for people under 15? The AI who's done training over this data in Athens across 10 different databases can get an answer. Yes, the trend is not good. Okay, maybe the under 15 kids are eating too much candy, or and so on and so on, right? So this is where it's getting to, is that you need to have a distributed model, federated model, that allows federated AI to run on this. Right? So this is actually a diagram from South Australia. And so there's EMR data, there's the health registry data. South Australia's got this project of Biobank trying to do DNA sequencing of all the people in Adelaide. They have biosamples going back to the 1940s and 1950s. And if they succeed, they will be the largest biobank in the world, larger than the one in the UK in Cambridge. That's the #1 largest one. The second largest one is in Arizona. There's a hospital there. This is about 500,000 citizens, right, over 50 years, which is quite amazing. So the problem then is, well, you don't want to give the querier, if this is a pharmaceutical company, you don't want to give them access to the raw data, but the pharmaceutical company needs to be able to ask questions. So they might have one question, they might have 100 questions, they might have, and so the idea would be, this needs to be a closed, trusted network using the latest tamper-resistant hardware that allows you to protect the data within the hardware while using it. It's called confidential computing. So if you Google Microsoft Azure confidential computing, Google, actually Intel confidential computing, you'll see that in the United States, people are developing these new chipsets that functions literally as a secure vault for your data, but you can ask questions, and the data never leaves, right? And so this is what we're trying to help the Adelaide government develop, so that the various researchers can actually use the data for their own work. But yeah, that's my short presentation. So I'm gonna let Dr. Thanos here next upstage. Happy to answer questions. I don't know if it's now or later, but maybe later. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Harjono, for these very interesting insights. So we reached the stage where I'll introduce our second keynote speaker, Dr. Athanasios Thanopoulos, President of the Hellenic Statistical Authority. I'll run a quick bio. Dr. Thanopoulos holds a PhD in economics from the University of Pittsburgh and DEA and DEQA in mathematical economics and econometrics from the Toulouse School of Economics, and a degree in economics from the National University of Athens. During his tenure with the Council of Economic Advisors of the Greek Ministry of Finance, Dr. Thanopoulos dealt with a wide range of topics, notably statistical governance, quality of official statistics, design of bank recapitalization and resolution schemes, social security and pension design. The title of his speech today will be Data Marketplaces Towards an Integrated Framework for Efficient Data Dissemination. Dr. Thanopoulos, the floor is yours.
I'll figure this one out myself. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for the invitation. Thank you to Unisys and to Compellio for the invitation, for the opportunity to be within a milieu of so distinguished people, and to be in a zone which lies outside my own comfort zone. So this is not something that I don't do. It's just that I'm not getting invited in events like this one. It's not that I wouldn't do that, and I hope you will not regret it. You know, after listening the presentation to a presentation of a chief statistician that has, first of all, no graphs, no numbers, no pictures, no nothing. Another question is, what does it have? Okay, so it's just a bunch of thoughts there about the new dissemination scheme that I think about, that I think it is the future of the dissemination in statistics offices and in general in businesses or organizations that are in the information business. Let me put it like that. And I think that things, for the reasons that I will argue in what's going to follow, are the future. So you just mentioned what is my secret. I'm an economist by training. I thought that so far it was only economists the one who would exhibit expansionary and imperialist tendencies to the detriment of other sciences. Okay? So then I realized that also data scientists, you know, have come to do to economists what economists have been doing to others for quite a while now. And you're right to do so, by the way, and because you see the foundations of logical thinking and human thinking are common. Okay, what we do in science and also in economics, by the way, which happens to be to a large extent or to 100% the social science. So it's a quantitative social sciences way before other social sciences have embarked to the same journey. What we do is that we start trying to put some order, I mean, to the practices that we use. Myself, I'm not only a trained economist, but I'm also a practitioner. I'm not an academic. I'm here as a practitioner. I do teach students from one time to the other, but I feel as a practitioner. And as a practitioner, I need to solve concrete problems. And for me, this is what that's the element that is of utmost importance when it comes to thinking about theories and thinking about putting theories together to come up with something that will give an answer to the practical problem that I will need to solve. And usually this practical problem does not have any analytical, let me put it like that, the way you academics would have put it, answer. It doesn't even have a numerical answer, being like probably approximated through convergent algorithm. It doesn't even have a combination of analytical, numerical, heuristic, or even a little bit of an art answer, okay? So it's what we do, that's our daily business in what we do. So my today's topic is dissemination. In official statistics, I'll need to get some water, please. In official statistics, the so-called generic statistical business model of producing statistical information out of data, as you can imagine, were machines that transform data to information. That's what we do for a living, okay? We have three phases. One of the phases is the phase of development of a statistic. So people tell us what they need to, or maybe we will have to figure it out, or maybe there is a European regulation that forces us to produce something like that. Then we have the phase of a production, and then by using data, etc., and using statistical methods, and then we have the phase of dissemination. Dissemination starts at the point where our final product is ready, and then we need to somehow explain to people what we do, okay? We need to explain to people what we have done, what is the information that we have managed to produce out of the data that they have given them to us. I'll come back to that later. I understand that probably some of that stuff is very elementary for many of you, okay? But I need to explain a little bit our work. So the evolution of, I missed one slide, that's no problem. Okay, so the evolution of data dissemination of official statistics is a very easy way to describe it. There's a very easy way to describe that. It starts from Gutenberg, okay, like printed stuff, books, and then it ends up right now with AI, with like personalized experiences. I mean, we went to APIs at some point. You know, when internet pitched in the very beginning, we had the opportunity to have our web pages, but still it has always been something very static, okay? It was like a store. You just go out there, you see a catalog of products, and then you choose which one you want, which one you need. And by the way, you don't have to buy it, because there is a silent agreement, a tacit agreement, let me put it like that, in society that we have to provide the data, the information that they have produced to you for free. I mean, as long as you provide your data to us for free. I mean, given the insights that we gained from the previous talk of Mr. Harjono, we already understand that this can only be, in the modern world, this can only be a very specific case of the environment, of what the environment should end up being in the coming years, okay? It should be a limited case, okay? So what we do is we have like a static way of doing things. So users have a dual role. The role is to use our data, to read our data and to use it from their work, and they're also respondents. So in different phases in their own lives, there is a cycle of official statistics. They provide data. With that data, we produce statistics, and then those statistics go back to their homes as information. And then you can think that there is a so-called virtuous cycle of official statistics and the vicious cycle of official statistics. Meaning that the virtuous cycle of official statistics, by the way, I have a paper in the International Journal of Official Statistics of the IAOS back in 2019, talking about statistical literacy, in which base I try to somehow describe, you see, the essence of those two cycles, but it's very easy to you for you to grasp the essence behind the virtuous nature, meaning there is a cycle of trust, and the vicious nature, which is a cycle of distrust. Let me just go to the latter only, of the distrust is that, okay, you think that I'm wasting taxpayers' money, so you don't give me your data, or you just give me random numbers, and then garbage in, garbage out, and then what returns to your backyard is garbage. Okay, that's a bad equilibrium, as economists call it. Okay, you have like a bad equilibrium of people doing things and being paid for doing things, like statistics offices, that have no usefulness for society. Now, that whole model, the model that we have been relying on so far, it hinges on people's willingness to believe to our story, to what I try to explain to you right now, okay? So it does not try to convince people with different ways. It does not try to tell people, okay, it does not try to, let me use your words, to quantify, to monetize, you see, the value of each piece of information that one contributes, like you would probably, say in your book, contributes to the system, and to price it out properly in order for it to be considered as such in the information production procedure, and being evaluated as such, and then being priced out as a component of the final information product. Okay, I think that was a too long sentence that I used, but I'll make myself a little bit more clear. So my idea, and I'm sure this is not an original idea, but this is something that has started being discussed in our profession as well, is how to move from a static framework of dissemination, from a post-it or even like inexistent prices, because we don't charge prices right now. We can only charge you some process fee for something that we need to work on. This is like labor. Labor cost is not the value, does not embody, does not incorporate the value of the data that we have in our in our information sets. Let me put it like that. Okay, so how we can move from a static provision to a more dynamic provision set framework in which users, I remind you, I made the distinction between users on the one side, users of information, and producers of information, like we are. So users, so far, they have been only providing their data, meaning like responding to our surveys, or, either in our live experiments in our surveys, or we collect their data through other means. Okay, you can imagine that, like administrative data or big data, but still that data of theirs is available to some point, and we use them. Okay, so they are passive there, and on our case, we're just information providers. So how can we move from such a scheme to a scheme where you have users being considered also as providers of data? What can justify such a thing, such a move? Well, I had tried to motivate such a move myself to my thinking through the fact that needs for information, current, emerging needs for information, have become more and more demanding. In terms of granularity, in terms of timeliness, in terms of trustworthiness, which might be linked to traceability maybe, in terms of characteristics that have not been important in the past, or have not been so important in the past. I can remind you that like 30 or 40 years ago, it was sufficient to get like a series of 100 observations from a statistics office and complete a PhD. That's no longer the case. You cannot do many things with a series of data, 100 observations. You need to do a little bit more work in order to get your PhD. Okay? And so, question there is, since aggregate information that was the main issue in the past, you know, people were asking for aggregate information. Okay, what is GDP? What is inflation? What is unemployment? Okay, it was an issue in the past. Now, local things and local issues are becoming even more and more important. So shifting from the aggregate to the local, to the granular, to the individual at some point, and all that thing in combination with the data revolution that has multiplied exponentially or even super exponentially, you can imagine, you can name it, the availability of data that is collected for all of us. So this issue brought the producer, the data provider, to the data user closer. I mean, the two notions. So the notion of the data provider has come closer. The notion of a data provider has come responded, let me call it like that, has come closer to the notion of a data producer, of an information producer like we are. So, and this is why we have decided to put more, as societies, to put more order to what we do. And this is the reason why we have legislations like GDPR, et cetera, for privacy protection, not only in the European Union, but also elsewhere. So the issue here is how to come up with a more flexible, more adaptable, and more secure for exchange setting for when it comes to dissemination. Okay? And to just depart from this, as I call it, like one side, but this is like a stereotype expression, to depart from this like one size fits none approach like we have, okay? So the core principles and goals that we have here is, I'll sit behind, this, better. You see, it's transparency, meaning like how would people understand well the terms of use of the data. It's like flexibility, how you manage to cater to individual needs instead of like selling or just showing them packages, if you like it, take it, or take it or leave it, or if you don't like it, don't take it. Decentralization, Thomas mentioned that, of course, okay? This is a key word, okay? How you manage to do that, not through an intermediary necessarily, and I keep the asterisk of the scheme that you mentioned in Adelaide before, that there are certain cases where you need an intermediary, and I will mention that before, but there are other cases where he can come up, with a peer-to-peer negotiation, and of course, economic fairness. Whoever is contributing valuable data, there must be some way for him to be rewarded for that. Or whoever might be willing to forego some of the rights that they have according to legislation, they should probably, be rewarded in that scheme. This is very bold, by the way, okay? I'm not saying, okay, let's start trading, our privacy issues here, okay? But a general scheme should take into account like that. And, I'm thinking very, very liberally as an economist right here, okay? I just put everything in the market and I hope that something good will come up, out of that, okay? And efficiency, of course. What kind of an economist should I be if I didn't talk about efficiency, okay? Because we believe that at the end of the day, markets are efficient, which are not, okay? And but at least, you see, data exchanges, I mean exchanges of data, I'm not talking about the institution of an exchange, like you speak in your work, but data exchanges, of course, in that sense are very useful, okay, here. But the exchanges of data can be done, with less resources. I will skip that probably, for the rest of the discussion, but I will just stick in the last sentence that I wrote over there, which is very, which actually refers to what Dr. Harjano mentioned in the previous presentation. So there could be, there can be a nice way of producing insights and getting insights without being forced to exchange sensitive, according to GDPR information, with others. By the way, in the European Union right now, there is Eurostat is running, and we as ELSTAT, we participate in the implementation of that project, is running a project which is called Joconda, which provides for a scheme that would enable different data providers to combine their data with different ways that will be cleared in a neutral data hub, let me call it like that. I will find the word that you used. You used the word data exchange gateway, maybe? Okay, so that will be the similar way. So they will be somehow combined there, in which place none of the contributing parties would have access, okay, to the data of the other person. So you just make requests there, you make requests, I make requests, I make a request and I give out data, and I get insights and I publish that, and you make requests and you get your the result of your query, and then you go ahead and do your work, or you publish your research. So automation through AI is more than obvious, but we can talk about that later. So a scheme in which, with the help, of course, of AI, can combine all those constraints that come from both sides, both from the side of the user, formerly as considered as user, and the side of the producer of data, can lead to that, okay? It gives you, of course, the possibility to even trade rigidities from each side, not necessarily with money. So, for example, I can trade granularity, okay, I can ask for more, for less granularity in order to get depth, okay? So this is how things can be traded at that, in such a framework. So, and the prices, when I say prices, I mean like the terms of exchange are determined dynamically. So, for example, a machine, okay, a system, a gateway as you call it, can see what is the, can set, you see, a price of relaxing a constraint as a number of similar, as a function of a number of similar requests serviced, okay, as a function of peak load considerations, or, you know, as a function of the, and determined, by the way, at the end of the day, the shadow prices of a constraint relax, etc., etc. One of the final things I will say right now is that this is what, these two things are the traditional practices that can be considered as special or limiting cases of the model that we discuss here. So far, we have like traditional passive dissemination, like we do. We don't do anything else, we just have our data. And then we also have like data stewardship functions. This is what the General Secretariat for Information Systems does. Okay, they provide individual information. We don't do that. We are not obliged. We don't have the right by our law to distribute, to come up with individual information. Okay, to reach to a singleton. And of course, the new framework, I will stick only to the last part of my slide. Not only it builds more trust, through transparency between providers and users, let me call it like that, by also making users looking much, much closer also to providers, not information providers, but data providers, okay? But it also allows also for, okay, I'm very good in marketing, I think. I'm not good in marketing, but I mentioned that you can include traceability to our quality framework, and I can call this like quality plus T, okay? Sounds funky, okay? So traceability is a property that can be developed in an orthogonal manner to the other traits of quality that we have in our business, like timeliness, like all sorts of granularity and things like relevance, etc., etc. So again, scalability, reduction of negotiation of time and effort thanks to AI, and of course, ensuring the legal and privacy standards are met, okay? Some of the legal terms posted from both sides can be cleared in very automatic manners. We just don't know it. And then we, at this point, if you ask for a very detailed data set from Elstat, we'll have to take like few weeks for us to complain, to see, and still we're gonna be mistaken, okay? Not only for Elstat, but also in other statistics services. Will certainly not be as good as a machine, would be in putting in a hierarchy and an order to some legal constraints and see what is the pecking order of those constraints. So, next steps. I'm done, Dennis. Okay, so technological implementation, and this is why you guys are here, okay? Develop peer-to-peer framework, and of course integrate AI for compliance automation, as I said before. And of course you need pilot programs. You need to collaborate with organizations and governments, not only organizations like ours, but also with other governments in order to test and refine, the more data that you have, those negotiation mechanisms. And you see whether those negotiation mechanisms converge, they cannot come up, with the prices that I mentioned in one of my previous slides. And of course, you need to make sure that you are aligned with the regulation that exists in different countries, but I was very happy to hear that the US and other countries, from your presentation, Thomas, that the US and other countries, they somehow, they get somehow inspired, by what is going on in Europe, and they adopt similar frameworks that can be treated by a machine, in a similar, way. So my conclusion is what I mentioned already before, and I hope I will have time to comment a little bit later. I think that this is the only way to somehow proceed with an ever-increasing demand for data, for more granular data, but for a granular data that preserves privacy. So these are like two objectives that seem to be conflicting. In one side, it's like you want we have an expression in French, but I can. It doesn't come up, to me right now in English. You cannot be. It's like to ride two horses together. Okay, You cannot easily ride two horses together, but it seems that technology might help you think. So there is some room, you see, for maneuvering right now, thanks to technology and thanks to a little bit of more open-minded thinking. Okay? I take my water.
Thank you, Dr. Thanopoulos, for this. We're going to have a short break, 15-minute break, before we move on to second stage of the day, which is going to be a panel discussion. the panel discussion, during which we will have the opportunity to expand further on what we have just heard. So, Dr. Dennis Havriliotis of Compelio, CEO of Compelio, will act as moderator. So, Dennis, fire away.
So, hello, do you hear me okay? All right, so I'm thrilled to have you all around here in Athens for the first time, Thomas. Thank you.
Third time's the charm, yeah.
So yeah, the challenge would be now to synthesize a bit of what we heard. So I'm going to go through 3, 4, eventually if we have time, topics. So the first is about the data economy. So I'm starting asking question to the first speaker, and then you can, of course, the others can jump in the discussion. Okay, so it's around 5 minutes. Maybe somebody, Dimitri, that you sit over there so I can see you, and you can make a sign. Yeah, okay. So in the 5 minutes, so I can have a notion of time, because there are a lot of things that I would like to address. So let's start. I mean, the difficult thing is to synthesize from all the things that I heard. So let's go. I mean, we started talking about data in the economy back in the early 2000s when we were having this API economy. So that was the first step. And then we had the crisis. And along these days, we had suddenly people say, we don't need banks, we don't need anything, we just need cryptocurrencies and a peer-to-peer exchange of value. So it was a joke back at that time, okay, well, not necessarily a joke, because now Bitcoin is 100,000 euros each. So, but the thing is that the move makes central banks to come into play and talk about digital money. And digital euros are piloted in most of the central banks. So this exchange of value between people, it is something serious, important, new, and redefines what the data economy is about. So my first question would be to you, Thomas, and then, of course,
Sure.
You others can jump in.
I'll get the microphone.
So it's, how would you define... So how would you define the data economy now in this context?
Sure. So this is a good analogy that sometimes there's a business and then there's an offshoot that turns out to be more beneficial and provides more revenue than the original idea. So I like to think of it as insight as a service. And so most people, most companies, most applications don't need to handle the data. So if I'm a car company, I want to sell cars, I'm Toyota, Honda, I don't have to hold data about people, but I'd like to get some insights. You know, for example, what's the average mileage driven by people in Athens? Or, you know, what is the average accident rate of people under 25, right? So could we turn the data economy and look at it as an insight as a service through standardized APIs and let the providers of the data behind this figure out how to compute this. So I think we are talking about the example of a courier company or taxi company. A taxi company actually has a lot of data. It's just they're not using it. So they're driving all over the town. If they could put sensors or even cameras on the underneath of the car, you could actually evaluate the conditions of not just the traffic, but the roads. A good example of a side business is Amazon Cloud Services. So AWS, Amazon Infrastructure Services, was an offshoot of the Amazon store. Right? So the Amazon store needed infrastructure to buy and sell books. Originally it sold books. Now it sells everything, from clothing to food, right? And to be able to provide the service, they needed a large data center and infrastructure. And Jeff Bezos had this clever idea. Well, if Amazon needs this kind of data center, then other companies will need it, right? So now that's a separate business, and I'm told the AWS, I think, makes probably more revenue, as good a revenue as the main shop, Amazon.com shop, right? So this is a side business. So I think look at the problem as insight as a service, and then work backwards to see what kind of data infrastructure you need to build in Greece to provide insight as a service.
So a question would be then, if an insight it's something that is potentially monetizable, I should avoid this word, but it actually has a value, so it has a price. I mean, what do you think would be the approach of creating assets? Because maybe there is value where companies don't even know that they can monetize.
So many of you who are in private sector, you may not even realize you're sitting on a lot of assets, because you're not looking at it as an asset. You're looking at it as a boring data. It's this data we don't care about, right? So I think one thing is to look at. I think I was talking to this, I forgot your name. So data cooperatives. So one of the topics we've been championing now for 5 years at MIT is the idea that, like farmers cooperatives, or why were farmer cooperatives created in the 1920s? So farmers who live in the middle of the United States, same here, probably same in France, same in Europe, they needed to transport their goods into the cities, and initially they hired transportation companies who became middlemen, and they were overcharging the farmers, right? The farmers said, like, why don't we get together as a collective? So we're saying, could we create a data collective whereby I have GPS data, you have GPS data, you have GPS data. One person useless, 3% useless, but if 50,000 citizens in Greece collectively got together to create a non-profit that they own, they drive, the governance is done by them, they write the bylaws, the regulations, they write the API. Well, they go to Dennis will do the APIs for them. But the point is, most people are not tech people. So what they do is you need to hire IT services. Now, in the United States, the closest model is called a credit union. So there's two types of financial institutions. There's banks, set of regulations. There's a separate regulation for credit union. A credit union is a member-owned, member-driven, member-governed financial institution that is aimed to give the members services. So if I want a car loan, so MIT has an MIT credit union. Most universities have in the United States. Harvard has one. If I want to get a car loan for $20,000, I can go to the bank. The bank will give me 7%, okay? But if I'm a member of a credit union, they'll probably give me half of that, 3%, maybe less, right? And so we have been engaged in many credit unions. The largest one I spoke to was in Vermont, 60,000 members. And what was interesting is they didn't own a single computer. So I walked into the buildings like, where are your servers? There's no so all the IT is done in a company in Texas, 1,000 miles that way. What's more interesting is that the Vermont Credit Union, the Alabama Credit Union, and another one all share the same IT platform. The screens look the same, only different color. The menu is one is like green, one is red, one is blue, right? So it's like, oh, we're the Vermont, we got the green one. If you go to Texas, you get the red one, right? But it's definitely something doable, and the revenue that you get from the data cooperative is used to pay for the IT services and also the membership benefits. So you might ask me, what's the other benefit? So if you have a 50,000 data co-op, you might see that maybe there's a large percentage of them who are young families. What do young families need? Okay, they need money, but they need diapers. Okay, if you have babies, you need diapers. Okay, so you can collectively go to the big warehouses, the big shops, and say, give me a 50% bulk discount for baby diapers, baby food. Right? So you can get benefits that are not necessarily money, but other benefits, healthcare. Right? So things like that. Anyway, that's one way you could monetize, and it's definitely doable in any country. I encourage people in Greece to do it, and plenty of people here know about how to do IT systems, so it's really arguing for the business case.
So coming back to the asset, I have a dual question to both of you. More public, in a sense that it is an authority, the statistical offices are authorities, so it's little resistance to people to, trust or mistrust. That, as you say, so public sector question and private sector question. So when you have assets, I mean, how can you think that we could create this quality as trust or trust behind the assets? I mean, should you say, I'm the authority the statistical authority, so you trust me because I am Elstat. And of course, in the private sector, we have the opposite problem, is that, I mean, okay, no one will trust easily something coming from the private sector eventually. So my question would be, how would you see this approach of having trust on assets, starting with Thanos and then Adoni?
Thank you. I mean, first, I would say that if an accountant, was listening to us here and mentioning is once the data is capital, data is asset, and data is liability, data is, he would go nuts, okay? Definitely, but the truth is that there are attributes of data that can fit very, very well the characterization of liability sometimes, asset the other times, and capital.
Accountability as well.
Huh?
Accountability as well.
Exactly, accountability as well. Okay, so this is what is I'm not going to go to the underlying reasons for which assets, data, have those, can fit, in different cases and in different circumstances, different things. But I will go to your question. Yes, sometimes we go like it's proof by intimidation. Yes, we are the authority, and you have to trust us. I mean, would that go a long way? No. Okay, so you have to somehow think of a way that you can have people trust you, their data, in a sustainable way, in a sustainable manner. And this, you cannot do it by just invoking your authority. Your authority, by the way, and the authority of public, well, I will let alone the fact that I come from an authority that it's not many, many years that had like a major blow to its reputation. It was not its reputation, of course, to keep confidential data, but it was its reputation about the quality of information it was producing with the data it was gathering, okay? So we have learned our lesson in many dimensions, and one of the important dimensions that I want to mention here is the fact that sustainability in your trustworthiness passes through the involvement of all the stakeholders in your circular of production of information, in particular of the data. I don't have a similar story as Thomas, but the notion of a cooperative having like a controlled, nexus of people which at the same time, they can contribute, but at the same time they get some benefits, even if those benefits are not monetary, could work as a nice example in our world as well. Why not? So, long story cut short, I think that the way that we can proceed like that is not through authority, is not through like invoking our authority and intimidating people. I've never done that. It's through the involvement of all stakeholders.
And you, Andoni, your view from the private sector?
Yes. Everybody, we agree that, data can be an asset. The big problem from the private sector, I believe, is that very, very important is to identify why their asset is valuable. And the problem here is that if you don't build an ecosystem or you don't have a sectorial access, it's very difficult because maybe the usage of this data is not valuable in a business that is near to you. I will give you an example about that. And I like also to see inside our group, Unisystem is part of Quest Group. So we have a very big divide of companies and industries that we are positioning in the market. So the courier company today, ACS, collect vast amount of mobility data, such as delivery routes, travel time, traffic patterns, driver behavior, many other data. Why they want this data? Traditional, they're using for internal to optimize logistics, for their own. But in the context of data economy, the courier company can tokenize the mobility data and secure share with other stakeholders to create new value. So we have identified through the ecosystem and innovation, we are sitting now in collaborative initial phases of speaking. And this is very, very mature in Central Europe. We have, especially in the automotive countries, They collect data. Insurance companies, the courier can share anonymized driver behavior data with insurers, enabling them to design usage-based insurance products. That's very crucial for them. Real-time risk assessments. And of course, the benefits for the courier through these tailored policies and the insurance by opening new business opportunities for them. Now, for Smart City, we was impressed about the city. We try to put sensors all in our cities to identify the mobility. And it's very crucial from the enterprise perspective, and the need of this kind of data shares or data marketplaces is, where is the problem today? We have a huge problem for the environment, for the resilience, for the mobility, for the energy sharing, for all this stuff. So I believe this need to create this kind of ecosystem is to solve, otherwise it's very difficult to solve all the issues and the problems. So in the smart city planners, the traffic and the road condition data can provide municipalities to optimize the urban traffic. But of course, you can give back to the courier company, let's say, some kind of preferable access to the optimized routes, enhancing operational efficiency. It was a big municipality in Greece that we have a discussion with them. And they said that, okay, in the weekends, we have the commercial stores open, ACS, all the couriers are coming, all the logistic companies are delivered, and we have tourists in the summer. We have a double of people that are coming to because we are a market center, and it's a mess. It's a mess because they need data. If they can exchange data, but there is no framework of collaboration on ecosystem that we can share in this in a matter between. If I go now to the courier company, I go to the municipality, everybody say, okay, what will be my benefit? How we can share? We have this law, this governance. So I totally believe that the tokenization, this kind of framework is we cannot go out from this. This is mandatory to have this state. And we have many, many examples, companies like energy companies, that they need data now from the consumer. They need data from the weather. They need data from the mobility because they must predict the charging. They must predict a lot of stuff for their network. And they need it. Okay, so the need is huge currently. We don't know it. We don't know our data, where it's usable in other sectors. So I believe there is huge area of develop this kind of ecosystems, innovation.
Okay, I move to the second topic. So the first is about framing a bit the data economy. Now the second is, okay, there is some sort of trade, marketplace. So the second topic that I would like to discuss here is about how we redefine the marketplace. There are two things from your previous presentations that I would like to retain in this discussion, in this topic. First of all is, okay, the marketplace until now, it's something that reminds people the e-commerce. So the thing that where I go and I am a buyer and I buy something, put my credit card, so there is this one-way relationship between the buyer and the seller. Now, if we go to a federated data with assets, where assets eventually need, first of all, to have traceability so we can rely on what we're buying, and we're not necessarily buying only physical goods, but also things that have intellectual property. So there should be retribution of intellectual property when people buy. So we go to complex schemes. So one is the supply side. The supply side, it's getting more complex because you can buy things that are not necessarily belong to one, but to many. And on the other side, okay, we don't have Gen Zs here, but I mean, okay, people might get creepy because Facebook trace you, so they have everything, and there is, all the data in order to sell you things that you don't necessarily want at the end of the day. So there is a move of having data owned by people, and eIDAS too that has been mentioned. It's a tremendous, opportunity for that. So I am a person that companies used to see me as a buyer, but now I'm becoming someone that owns data. So the circle of supplying and using data, or things that actually this cycle that Thanos explained that about the producers and the consumers is really short. We can even, if we go to Web3 communities that are very aware about all these things, they say, if I opt in a service that's coming from MasterCard, Visa, Netflix or whatever, I should be rewarded because I tell you who I am, and then if what you give me, it's interesting, then I opt in. And if I opt in, I would like discounts because I reveal my identity, for example. So these are totally new ways of interacting with platforms. So my question would be how you would define the marketplace in this context, starting with Thomas and then...
Sure. So one of the crazy ideas is that we've been looking at is how can you, so inside of the service, how can you tokenize the compute capability on data that's not only distributed, but each of them are encrypted. So there's this new type of chipset from Intel called SGX. It's 3 years old. You can secure guard extension if you want to know what it is. They've got a new version called TDX. And now many of the chipset makers are following suit. What is it is literally a hardware vault where your data has to be encrypted first. So you encrypt your data. This thing, this chip is in the cloud. You upload your encrypted data, and you only have the keys. No one else has the keys. And then the chip will give you its keys, and you combine the keys. And while your data is in the chip, it's operated on in encrypted state. So no one ever sees plain text data. And when this is finished, it's flushed, it's erased. Right? So this provides the technical engineering mechanism to give trust to the data owner that my data remains encrypted. So why is this important? If you multiply this effect across huge data centers, so you talk about tens of thousands of these chips you are able to compute unencrypted data. So why am I saying this? Because for the data market, you need the consumer to trust that the data remains encrypted. So we have a solution for that. To create a data market, you can tokenize the possibility of compute. So if I was a healthcare provider and I have data for 10,000 cancer patients, I could say, look, to be able to ask any questions, you have to buy my token. Right? And what do you get out of buying my token? You get the opportunity to ask insights. Right. The data is, you never see the data. It's guaranteed to be encrypted. You can compute on encrypted data. If you want to have more complex combinations, so we found that data increases when it's combined across domains, across verticals. So if I have credit card data and I have GPS data, alone these are not so valuable. But if I can combine them, I can get insights into the financial stress situation of individuals. This is a very real example, right? So imagine if you have the ability to combine, GPS data with health data, right? This is what Apple is doing. But if you've got Apple Watch, it's telling me that I'm not walking enough, I'm not exercising enough, and right now Apple has my data, right? But in the future, could we have a market where anyone can ask this? So if you want to, run a health shop, you want to sell vitamins, you should be able to pay for these tokens to ask questions, right? And citizens who are really the data owners, they remain confident that the data is in encrypted states, never decrypted, right? And it's always encrypted in storage as well. So this is a new trend that's emerging. There's a race going on now between Amazon, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, Google GCS, and soon Amazon, right? And this is part of the battle going on with the CPU wars with China, this decoupling. The United States is investing in this new type of chipset that provides inbuilt protection to the data, right? And in the future, in 10 years, this is going to be very common. Right now, it's 3 years into the product cycle. It's relatively new, still expensive, but you can actually, build prototypes to do that. I encourage you here in Greece, start playing with this now, right? That literally, give your engineers, 6 months to do this here. You're free to do this. Here's a bunch of money. Buy Google GCS, play around, encrypt data, run queries, so that your engineers in Greece become familiar. And so they can build products not just for private sector, but also the government. Because in the United States, the government data has been hacked so many times. I just learned 2 months ago, the Social Security Office got hacked. So somebody's got data for 120 million citizens all the tax data, right? So this is crazy, right? So I wish the government in the United States had used this encryption hardware technology for my data, right? So there's an opportunity for, in fact, for the government to prove to the citizens that it's protecting citizen data, right? Definitely, technology is available today.
So, Adoni, going
Sorry,
back.
that was long. Sorry.
No, it's perfect. Always good examples. So about the marketplace, because okay, also as part of the Quest group, you have also direct-to-consumer, business models in your company. So, how do you see this new era of marketplaces?
I totally agree with the statement that we cannot see this data marketplace like a static marketplace, that we go enter and get some data. It's something that will not have a lot of impact. Where we can see from some kind of collaboration we have currently, that we have some private marketplace of data currently, and they start collecting data, but now with AI, they try to combine different data and to provide a source or a results that is based on processing of AI or something valuable. Again, we totally believe that is not a process that can be sustainable, because again, it's very statical. I'm the provider, I know the value, give me the data, I will create. So the tokenization part, that you pay for the token, the process that is needed for that, it's very important. Now, something that I want to add, and Dennis also, in the participation we have, is from the digital product passport approach. Okay, and I want to add the digital product passport, because digital product passport that currently we run also, like system with Compelio, a sandbox in Europe. We have a lot of sandboxes, different sandboxes currently, that EU is trying to see how we can work in different sectorials of the market. It's a sectorial approach, and it's combined some stuff that's very important: the transparency, the traceability, the tokenization in one place. So you take the data, you combine them, you make a passport that for the industry is very important, because this kind of history and traceability is very important for the others. Let's say we saw a lot of construction stuff. We're building some construction parts, and this construction part is combined with different materials and sources, and all these kind of material sources is combined with the product passport of the product that combine all the origins of that. So why it's very important? Because in an industry that now the ESGs or the sustainability and all this study is very important, it gives the market or the building, the smart buildings, the proof that from the sourcing perspective, they gather all the data. So I want to see this kind of approach, and to put in the discussion that this kind of digital product passport gives a more clear view to the industry, how things can work. It's not mandatory the only stuff that will work, but because also from the sandboxes and on the progress that Europe do on that, and also I believe it's a good approach.
Perfect. So give me a nice, follow on this question to Thanos. I mean, the digital product passport it's a nice example of creating an asset by relying on things that are not necessarily belong to you, because you need to collect data upstream for a product, and even downstream. If I take typically the battery regulation that will come into force in the end of 2026, it says that you have to have information about the recyclability of your battery, so you can give it as part of the passport to the consumers, so they can actually see who's greener than others, so they can choose in the market. So this dimension brings one thing that you mentioned in your presentation, Than, about the fact that there should be an economic model related to the asset, because there might be things that are more difficult to obtain, and others that are, because you own the data, it's easy to put in the market as asset. So the economic model that you put on top of an asset that is sellable brings into it all this production, process, easy or expensive. So since you are actually in this business of marketing data, not necessarily as statisticians, but in this stream of using data, can you tell us a few words about the economic models that we could think of for the new marketplaces?
Dennis, I think that the world has become, very complicated. Seriously, I thought about marketplaces, and I will try to become more concrete. Probably not as concrete as Thomas. Has like a very specific a set on how all those issues will be taken care of. But you see, it becomes very complicated. What is certain, and I see that, is that all transactions become less and less anonymous. Okay, I don't know if we can agree on that. Right? It's less and less anonymous, and I don't know if that the compromise of anonymity, and I abuse the word compromise. Okay, it's not something. It's something that we choose in order to enter a transaction. Okay, we choose to somehow, escort this transaction with some characteristics that will follow it, or follow the good, or follow the service, and what is going to happen. And this is part of the intrinsic value of the service or the good. And this is something I get benefit for because I can sell it. Okay, so I'm happy to do that. But then that's the interesting part. So back in 300 years ago or 200 years ago, when I went to the open market there and I was buying vegetables, eggplants, for example, which I love myself, all I needed to do is to just give money, okay, and then get eggplants. Not data, eggplants, and I will explain what I mean. It didn't matter too much. I'm saying eggplants or nuts. Nuts maybe or beans, okay? I'll say beans. Beans, it didn't matter which part of the bag I was going to get an ounce of beans or which other bags. But for data, it matters. So, data does not have this property which is called, that money has, which is called fungibility, okay? So data is not fungible. So any part of the bunch of data that you want to, the packet of data, I speak very colloquially, that you choose is not substitutable by the other, okay? Well, nuts, they have this, okay? You just buy cashew nuts, just here or there, it's pretty much the same, okay? So it's that kind of thing that makes data handling, selling difficult. This is what is the thing that makes the so-called market clearing conditions when you're about to sell something, when you're about to reach the so much wanted, the double coincidence of wants between two people that want to enter in a transaction, okay? That's what it makes it's so difficult, okay? That's what makes it difficult to price out the different traits that come with the data, like reusability, for example. I know that I do have the right, it's not like eggplants, because once I have 3 kilos of eggplants to sell in the market and I manage to sell them, then they're gone. I cannot sell them again. I know that, and somebody has eaten them. But when I have my data, theoretically and practically I can resell them, okay? So this is one of the things, but there might be ways, restrictions of use, for example, that will follow the data that I'm trying to sell that prevent me from selling them again. So this is what makes handling, selling, buying, data much more complicated than what it used to be. So this is what makes it also tough for me, to think, and with the traditional economists, mind like that. Still, I feel that sticking to the traditional way of just having a catalog of products, of data products, or a catalog of insights, as you would probably call it, okay? Just insights. It's very regressive, okay? It's not gonna go a long way. It cannot go a long way because around the corner, there are people who are selling things that are much more tailor-made to the needs of people who want more insights and might end up being cheaper at the end of the day.
So I love the discussion. I would like to stay here until the night. Okay, I have to move to the next topic though. Okay, but it's about the European perspective. Okay, as you know, we are very good at building fences because we used to kill each other a lot here in Europe. No, the thing became a bit better now with the European Union. So if you see our regulations, the things that we are doing in the last years is definitely something that is trying to build some protection against, the big providers. So they can either are the hyperscalers, or there are Visas and Mastercards of the world and everything. So we have the eIDAS 2, which is a decentralized identity for citizens. We have a lot of regulations related to either product passports or, GDPR was before eIDAS. So the thing is about in the European perspective, in the data economy, how do you see, okay, there are plenty of things. There are, new models of computing. There are AI rules. So I take the perspective of the CTO, the CIO, the COO of a company. Where should I start from this maze and, quite complex environment where I'm in Europe, I need to take care of all the regulatory aspects. So usually regulatory aspects means cost,
Yep.
but from what we discuss in here, there are also opportunities with all these new things. So where should I start? Okay, start with Thomas and then.
So it's not just Europe. So Australia is the same. Japan is the same. The interesting is they have the same problem. So in Japan, one of the ideas, one of the needs is that the different CANs provinces, they have their own databases, and the central government would like to connect them because the central government would like to see the state, because there's an aging population. Villages are literally emptying because people are dying. You can buy a house for $100 if you want, but you have to live in it and you have to fix it. Yes. So the things like that. So it's the same set of problems. I think for a company to do that, I think you'd have to narrow down to the use case first and the particular domain, right? Which is why I talk about healthcare. Because healthcare, there's finance, healthcare and health data, I think it's less contentious because everybody needs health services. And most people, most citizens, when you explain, look, if you enable your data to be participated in machine learning and so on, you can get the benefit yourself, which is, for example, the pharmaceutical companies will be able to offer you trials, participate in non-FDA approved trials, which is fine if you're very sick and you don't have a choice. If you have a child who's very sick, and you'll happily do that, right? So I think the first step for the private sector is to understand what domain are you working in, finance, and even narrow further. So are you in healthcare? Are you talking about cancer data? Are you talking about blood type data? Are you talking about behavioral health data, like healthy behavior data? So then you can figure out the size of the data, availability. That's the problem, is availability of the data. And then you can say, well, what kind of secure infrastructure, secure data center can what I need to build? So our advice when we were there at MIT, we basically said to the government of South Australia, if you want your data to stay in Australia, you're very concerned about data privacy, yet you want to attract foreign investment and foreign companies to come to South Australia to utilize your data, then you need to build new data centers. You need to incentivize the local data center guys, give them free land. I mean, literally, I said that. Look, you got so much land over there, okay? Okay? So why don't you give, whoever? And so it turns out they did that. So the city had, believe it or not, the city owned some, I think, tennis courts to play tennis. That was abandoned, that was not used. So they sold it to a local data center, the Adelaide company. They converted, built 2 two-story data center. And we advise them, when you buy the hardware, the blades, the boards, make sure it's got this SGX technology, right? Because you want to prepare for the future. Now, what's interesting also is the second big business industry in Adelaide is defense. So the bottom bit of Adelaide is where they build, the Navy builds the submarines. So you can just Google Australia submarines, and well, you heard about the French thing, right?
The ones that is lost by the French.
let me not bring up bad memories. It's still bad, but that was a second consumer there. So defense companies need to do computation with a secure data center, right? So I encourage companies in Greece, the private sector, if you want to join the AI race, you have to invest today. It sounds like a lot of money, but you need to invest in new types of data centers, because that's where your AI is going to be running from. In fact, your politicians will insist that the citizen data run in this new type of data center. So I'm looking at you because you're the CEO. It's cheaper to buy hardware now instead of getting lawsuits. Right? It's cheaper to buy hardware than paying lawyers. Okay, sorry, apologies to the lawyers in the room.
So, Adoni, your view on that?
Yes. Okay, let's say the European digital economy currently is running, I believe, 2 regulations that's very, very important, that give us the once only principle, that is very important, and the European Digital Identity Regulation with the ADAS and everything. So these initiatives from European Community aims to streamline data sharing across borders.
The once only principle is that if one administration in the European Union asks for data for specific purposes, specific processes like moving, retiring, no one in the other EU countries should ask the same to the same citizen. So if France has it, it has to share it with Greece, for example.
Okay. Now, this is tremendous difficult in the way that we have built currently our service in Greece. It's clear, the same in other countries. But so the strategy that is very logical to be happen on the market. So why? Because they enhance the user experience and the foster of trust and transparency that everybody needs on that. So for organization, whether public or private, this transition represents a unique opportunity to redefine their operations. And I will give some kind of examples that is very important for us. First of all, is very important from the private and government sector to embrace the federated data architectures. Very, very critical. We can see this, and the reason that we organize this also with the innovation team, because we are participating in many projects currently in European Union that, all this, what we're discussing today is a project. They try to mature them, and they try to apply them later to the countries. So we can see that data spaces currently, the sectorial data spaces, the project, the architectures, is totally, totally different. They embrace inside the tokenization, all the stuff, the wallets, the ADAS, and everything is part of the architecture. So it's very, very important to start also in Greece in sectorial parts to try to have some kind of pilots and to try to link this kind of opportunities. The second very important stuff is the new tools and technologies. New tools and technologies like the digital wallets with ADAS too. It's very, very important. Why? Because you can take this, you can use this technology that's created through the ecosystem and provide it without any connectivity with the consent of the user to the market. So imagine you have this very important healthcare data, but you want to have only the pass that I have a disease. That's very important. And I want to give this without any other data, without other papers to the retail because they want to provide a discount. So currently the situation is crazy. You must take your papers, you must take your condition, and all the retailers in Greece to know what's happening with you. Yeah. So, this is crazy. This is totally social correct. So I believe that this kind of approach to say what's your age, what your belief, what your situation of your health, and to provide it, and this interconnection, this kind of interoperability to be happen through the ADAS and through the digital wallet, it's great. It's a very big opportunity, not only for the market, but also for us to be able to be the issuer, the gateway of these kind of opportunities. The second very important is the LLMs and the AI-driven APIs that will capitalize a lot of stuff. Because as we said, if we go in a situation that APIs that we access, the data spaces, already create the data that you are discovering, so we're speaking again to replicate the model that we have today. We must be prepared for the interaction of the data. So we cannot discover, we cannot create, or we cannot design. So when we have API-driven things, so that we will create the value, the combination of data when somebody asks it. So I totally believe that, again, this is something also we see in a lot of projects that currently EU is running, to go to the direction, as Thomas said, about the tokenization of also the computer part and the whole stuff. So you order me something, I have the capabilities internally to run it and to create some new value of information for you through this discovery phase. And of course, very important for the market, again, is the identify and monetize value-added data sets, as we told previously, and build trust and transparency into every layer, and to try to build ecosystems. We have a lot of organizations in Greece. We have a lot of different sectorial organizations. Nobody is working today on the data part. We don't have tables to work on that. And these tables are very important, not only for the statistical data. We see huge interest from the energy sector, from the environmental sector, from the financial sector. But nobody have this kind of table of ecosystem of partners that have a trust level between them. We don't have this framework. We don't have a framework officially currently, us with the agent of statistical to work together and to identify data. So we need to work on that. And I believe that Europe give us the guidelines of that. We must not, again, follow, late, but we must ask more info, embed more this kind of architectures and frameworks, okay, and try to fast forward on that. Thanks.
Very short question to you, Thano. I mean, the European statistical system, I think it's the most concrete and older, from my understanding, cooperation for data sharing in Europe. So it's since the inception of the European Commission. At the beginning, it was, statistics are important. So what would be the lessons learned from this for the private sector? I mean,
I would start from what Andoni said just before. We need ecosystem-wide partnerships, and the European statistical system is a primary example of a coherent, long-standing partnership. I mean, the same problems that you're mentioning and you're calling for cooperation between private, government, etc., all the players here, we also face them amongst us. We have them. It doesn't mean that we don't have differences as statistical systems. We have different ways of collecting data. We have different ways of using data. We have different ways of disseminating. We have different business models in a sense or the other. So I think that we as statisticians, as NSI, National Statistical Institutes in Europe, we can serve as an example of a model of harmonization of standards in the entire process of development, as I said, production and dissemination of information. Okay, so this is the only thing that I can say about that. By the way, just a couple of comments on what we said before. I think regulation, and this is because as a European statistical system we're regulated, okay? We're not, we don't operate in vacuum. We operate through a stringent regulatory framework that even itself, we have to know that it is not sufficient to have like a total uniform. I mean, as you know very well, you cannot contract upon all contingencies in your life. There are very few the contingencies you can contract upon. So, I mean, this is what I want to to say. I mean, regulations are good. They definitely entail costs, okay? You need to find ways and time to adapt. You need to find, but still, they foster some sense of order to users, okay? To participants. You see, people feel more secure. I can give you the example of GDPR finally,
yes.
and I finish that. You know, GDPR is something that will make your life more difficult to share personal data or to reshare personal data because it asks you to justify. It doesn't prevent you, as people wrongly believe. It just asks you to justify what is going to be the use that you're going to do. And you need also to justify whether the country, what's cross-border country that you're going to share that data, of course, shares is considered to be, as the law guy says, adequate, has like adequate legislative framework in order to accommodate, you know, the type of data. But yes, at the end of the day, everything will have to be legislated. And as the Dire Straits tune says, you know, then came the churches, then came the schools, then came the lawyers, then came the rules. Okay, so you have at the end, at the end, you know who is coming.
So one last topic that I couldn't miss. You know, people make fun of me about not believing in AI. It's not true. I believe to sound AI. So, so there is a distinction between machine learning, which is understanding patterns and processing based on predictability of patterns or anything like that. We had also 2 Nobel Prizes, which is really important. One in physics and one in chemistry on machine learning algorithms this year. So it underlines the importance of the technology, and of course there is generative AI. So in generative AI, you can see for very serious approaches to things that are more fancy, like you can buy your co-worker for $1.5 per day, and he can assist you in doing your work. So you can see everything in this space. So my question would be, besides this fear of missing out, this FOMO thing that we see everywhere now, that anyone has to invest in AI, what are the real things that we could really leverage upon this technology, because it has tremendous power? But of course, it is also misused because it is also misunderstood. So,
AI machine learning or Gen AI?
Machine learning is known, so maybe you can go to the hype one, which is Gen AI.
Gen AI.
So.
Oh gosh. Okay. My wife, who is an Adobe Photoshop user, says that there's a huge complaint amongst the artist community that use Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop, because if you use the Adobe Cloud version, it uploads your file to Adobe Cloud, and Adobe runs
Train the model.
So originality is lost.
And then there's a Gen AI, right? I think there's serious applications for Gen AI. I think particularly in what I've seen in pharmaceuticals. So the ability to reduce the number of, so when you're designing new drugs, you have to understand biology, you have to understand the interaction and gene therapy and so on and so on. And there's some chemical combination structures that are physically impossible in nature. So if you could eliminate those impossible ones, because it's going to never happen, you reduce your search space for potential chemical combinations for new drugs. And so you can use Gen AI to help you locate those 1,000 possible combinations, right? So there is a good use of Gen AI in helping you investigate possibilities, reducing it to those that are likely to happen. And out of those, you can check, well, this 50%, it's too expensive. We can't do this, or it requires some rare chemical. So there is a potential use for Gen AI beyond, because the hype is about artwork, people stealing people's art and photography and so on.
So based on the previous discussion of how we sketched what the data economy is there anything that you could see as hotspot or opportunity for Gen AI and the data economy as we defined it in the discussion?
Well, that's also a good one. I think Yeah, so right now I'm still skeptical personally about Gen AI because the example
not
I've
only
seen it's primarily reusing other existing work and composing pieces versus discovering totally new, previously unexplored things like the drug structures, chemical structures, right? And that's why I'm kind of hesitant about Gen AI because there's too much hype. So I think more research needs to happen. I think you can use this secure computing, trust computing thing I was talking about to train AI. So indeed, there's research going on now about how can you do training on encrypted data without decrypting. Right?
Your colleague at MIT, Asemo, will say that a lot of money are going to be wasted
Yes.
in Gen AI.
That's right. That's right.
So I don't know, Antoni, as we discussed several times about that, if you want to say something on the topic on AI and data economy.
Yes. Look, there is a hype. It's not something. It's a revolution part. We can see huge benefits, but from the other side, we can see also that we're missing a lot of fundamentals, a lot of stuff. So, I believe that there is a huge area for machine learning currently that is untouchable, because we're searching for patterns. There is huge area for customer success on the Gen AI part, for bots and this kind of creation. But the market cannot be in one side only, because they create a very big hype on the one side, but also it's a huge, not to focus also where the values create. So I will give again for a logistic company. So logistic company, the core business that they have, the core technology that they will create that bring million is the routing engine. The routing engine of the logistic company is purely pattern-based structure. So it's a machine learning business, pure mathematics. Now, how the same company can be benefit from the Gen AI totally on the customer success, customer experience part. So we're speaking for two different sectors that is totally different teams and totally different areas of opportunities. So it's very crucial to understand it and to not to try everything and we can make it with one part of the thing. The other stuff that we can see from different projects that also Europe is very skeptical about the black box, nature of AI, the Gen AI part.
Absolutely.
It's consolidate this kind of knowledge. A lot of details is totally hidden. So we can see a lot of projects speaking about now hybrid approach. So build your own LLMs on that. From the other side, you go from the economical perspective, you see that a lot of startups on the Gen AI, on the traditional AI part are facing a lot of raising issues today because of the Gen AI. So it's a situation. From the other side, European community currently, they have a mega project of GAIX, as you know. GAIX provide the infrastructure for federated in each country, the capabilities of the hyperscaler. So if you see it from the traditional point of view, it's a totally, reply to the hyperscaler federated technology that they're having, like the cloud computing, that is necessary also for tokenization, for the stuff of the trust. This kind of architecture now that's going up to the storage, to the network, and to the computing layer, we see more and more now engaged on the innovation projects, that they are asking that. Will we win, or at the end, again, we will face a federated architecture through the traditional hyperscaler approach? So, everything is an investment. It's very difficult to provide. Also in Greece, we start to have our own GovGR, and now very big part of the GovGR is on the hyperscalers, part of that. So I totally agree that we're facing a lot of stuff, but I believe that, what we train and what will be the value for our market and for our future, it's something that must be very important. Okay, so I totally believe that also the companies have crucial data that is very important for like an asset. I will give an example. You have predictions engines currently that predict, the customer experience to buy a new product. Currently, all the retailers in Greece using the same prediction engine cloud provider. Can you imagine what will be the success of that? Very low for everybody. There is one company currently getting all these results for all the retail and have this kind of technology. No, I never believe that Amazon or other partners will give it like a service. That is a crucial step for them. So it's a matter of how important we believe and the impact of this kind of technology in the core business, and if we have the capabilities along to examine them and to go in this direction. Okay.
Very brief. I know, Thano, that you had a couple of weeks ago a half-a-day conference on the topic. So if you could be brief in one sentence about the AI.
I can combine all of that. It's like Bootstrap. Bootstrap. You could just. It reminds me quite a bit of Bootstrap. You see, you need to combine the already information that you have in your disposal, at your disposal, and then to regenerate. It's just to emulate the data generating process, and then from the realization that has emerged, from that artificially generated, like bootstrapped data generating process, to start getting insights. So it's kind of like similar, there much like I did that 25 years ago in grad school. Okay, so and ML, of course, it's even earlier. You see, because it's about ways of incorporating new information in your. But for us, I will go back to for us statisticians, we have a down and dirty job. We just do classification things. I mean, before measuring, we just do classification. So we just map. For example, in our census, we had a free field of the profession, of occupation. So, for example, for the work that one is doing in Elstat, which is Δημόσιος Υπάλληλος, or Υπάλληλος Elstat, there will have people who are writing civil servant or an employee of Elstat. There was a free field. So over there, having a library with the names of the classification of ISCO, for example, ISCO 2008, and some artificial intelligence, machinery behind it was very handy, because I was able to produce results like this, and probably they were better, than if it would have taken 3 years, to be produced by a person. So it can be useful in the 90%, of labor-intensive cases. But yes, you're going to be missing, I promise that, the tails of the distribution.
So thank you very much. I would like to put your hands together for the panelists. So
thank you.
We take some questions from the audience and eventually remote. So please, if there is
any questions from the audience, we've got a couple of questions from the platform.
Hi, thank you for your contributions. One question for Thomas regarding the next generation internet that is related, of course, to tokenization. So Boston Consulting Group is expecting the tokenizable assets to reach around 16 trillion USD by 2030, representing 10% of global GDP. Yes. So this is a huge thing. Yes. Related to the actual technology and the background and the infrastructure in order to develop those types of rails and bridges, we've seen the Bank for International Settlements describing the Finternet, so Internet of Finance. How would you see the evolution of the Internet as an underlying technology that facilitates asset description, discovery, exchange into this era of data being the new capital?
Sure. So one easy way to define Web3 Internet is that it's the Internet of value. So if I want to send, so right now Internet 2, I'm sending you message, I'm sending you an email, and Thanos sends you back email. In the future, I want to send him value, right? So the value, so in the European MiCA regulation, a token, they define it as a means to represent value or rights to value, right? So it has to be as easy as me sending him something, and the legal ownership transfers to him, and it has to settle globally, and it has to settle very quickly within less than a minute, right? It has to be confirmed. And so where the opportunity lies is the infrastructure, the technology to build this. Because remember, the internet started off with companies producing routers, right? So Cisco, what you guys know, Cisco is a huge company, but there was a time I remember when there were only 100 people working in Cisco, and they had one product, which is a silly router that was a product of a university lab, right? But somebody had the bright idea saying, well, the world is going to be needing millions of little boxes. Why don't we build it? So we're in this stage now that we don't have any little boxes. So there's opportunity, I think, for startups in Europe and Greece to begin building the components for the Web3 infrastructure. So for example, metadata registries for the asset. So if I claim that I have a token of value and I'm going to sell it to Thanos or give it to him, he needs a way to check that I'm not lying. Where is the provenance data information about this asset? So we need this, what I call next-gen digital infrastructure, and it's wide open. Like, don't wait until the Americans build it for you.
So Compelio Gateway is the router of the past.
So the Compelio Gateway is an example of this little box. I call it little box today, but just imagine there are millions of these little boxes that can transfer value across the globe, right? So I think Dennis is doing the right thing. Don't wait for the government. Don't wait to be regulated. Quick, and sell abroad. You want to sell your product. You want to export, right? Don't look at just the European market. Even in our group at MIT, we see the growth. The economy is down there, Southeast Asia. So Australia, Indonesia, up all the way to Bangladesh and India. All those coastal. That's the growth area. 1 billion plus people, 600 million. That's almost 2 billion people over there, and that should be the market for tech companies in Greece.
Okay,
that
thank you.
Kind of helps.
Okay, I've got a question from the platform. Well, it's a specific one, but it relates to the real estate market. Has the real estate tokenization been successful as an application in the United States? And if so, how widespread has it been? And what factors do you believe contributed to this success?
So probably not so. We've had 10 years, a whole decade, what I call BS. Which is basically Bitcoin. It means speculation. So far you've heard blockchains, tokens, Bitcoins. It's all speculation. There's no real productivity growth. There's no economic growth in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's famous saying, I'm quoting somebody else, Bitcoin has you can price Bitcoin for any price because it has no value. There's no inherent value in it. So what are the ideas coming along in this slow, so if you look at the hype curve, the famous Gartner hype curve for blockchain, we're at the bottom now. This is called the trough of disillusionment. This is pain and suffering. This is people not getting back their money. This is young people losing money from, but now it's the growth plateau, which is a 5-year, 10-year infrastructure technology growth. This is your opportunity. So one of those items is, could you tokenize real-world assets? One easy real-world asset is real estate because it doesn't move anywhere. Right. What's lacking is that if I own a piece of real estate in Athens, the evidence is still paper. It's not yet digitized. It's not accessible by other people. So if I want to sell my tokenized real estate to somebody in Singapore, that potential buyer has no way to check. Well, like, where's the API? Where's your servers? Where's the standards for me to validate that I'm not lying, right? So this is definitely, that's a promising. And I just finished collaborating with a person in Indonesia. So in Indonesia is a big market. Indonesia has, in Southeast Asia, has the largest number of transactions pertaining to crypto assets, right? What I call BS again. This is all speculation, right? This is young people jumping on the speculative market. But there are people there who want to tokenize real estate because there are developers who are trying to sell new properties on the northern beaches of Java. They're developing it, right? But they want to be able to sell to buyers in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, in Europe, also in a fractional manner. So you'd like to buy a property that's $1 billion, you can split it 10 ways, right? And you can then trade your 10% freely on the market, right? So this is kind of the ideas. So I think that's definitely coming, and I think this is an opportunity for people, who are serious about Web3 to jump in and build the infrastructure to do that.
Okay.
That's
thanks.
a long answer. I'm sorry.
True.
Yeah.
Well, very interesting though. The other question is a bit more general and comes back to what you both, Dr. Thanopoulos and you, Dr. Harjono, mentioned about the need for legislation. And I heard your answers, and basically what I would like to ask is, we've seen or realized, I believe, the transformative power of Web 3.0, the next generation internet. But at the same time, you need legislation to foster the adoption and innovation, and also act proactively in order to protect the producer of data and the user of data. So in your perspective, and the answer and the question goes to you both, is what kind of legislation do you believe would actually enhance this? Is something laser focused or something more broad, like what I believe is the EU AI Act, which was recently passed? What do you believe?
Yeah, I will attempt, thank you for the question. I will attempt a reply, but it will be again in principle, since I'm not an expert in legislative expert, and I'm not a lawyer, but my gut feeling is that, laws, since they are, by their nature, they create distortions, okay? They come to regulate something that had already its own entropy, okay? And they come all of a sudden there just to put an order to that. In order to put an order to that, you create necessarily, some distortions. So you have some positive, some upsides, and you also have, of course, some downsides. I don't think that there is a law that can act proactively on a phenomenon that has not fully formed yet, okay? Allow me to say that to the extent I understand what you say, okay? I probably don't, and so correct me if I'm wrong, but proactive legislation, I think it does not really exist, to do proactivism. Still, you can have robust legislation. You can secure yourself against an array of phenomena that can emerge, but you're risking to kill. You see always a fly with a sledgehammer. That's an issue of you see the fine balance that the legislator should always, or ourselves, you see it in the face of the legislator when we vote, should need to strike.
If I may add one thing,
yeah.
The legislation is typically in the Web3, there is this marketing crypto assets regulation, the MiCA. It regulated the crypto assets because it was a mess.
It was a mess.
But all the things that are related to trading of tokenized assets, it's not part of the regulation yet, because it's not mature yet.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly the thing, because it is not mature yet. And then you see the order that I mentioned before, the Mark Knopfler's Dire Straits tune, will come in. They will wait for the ideas to be fixed and being implemented, and then they will come. But this, of course, will come at the risk of creating distortions, of course, okay, and of course penalizing innovations, as you very well mentioned.
So I would say it this way. So I think you should regulate quickly, but you should create laws to make people run sandboxes. But you need more than sandboxes, because sandboxes is just about, you need to give incentives for startups to play in the sandbox. So the Greek government could say, okay, little startup will give you a tax break up to $1 million. So the first $1 million of revenue you're going to make in the next 10 years will be non-taxed. Okay, that's your carrot, if you play in the sandbox. So you need a roadmap out of the sandbox into a product. It's not enough to just do sandbox, because a lot of little startups die in the sandbox. There's no roadmap going out for products.
Right, okay.
Sorry.
I have a question related again with Gen AI and data. Can Gen AI be the new way of democratizing data access and data analysis? So you have a prompt-based access to data and also to data analysis, the way we do it like right now. I mean, this is a way forward for Gen AI in relation to what we are talking about here.
Okay, I hesitate because the word democratization is kind of loose. I think there's maybe not Gen AI, but AI generically, machine learning, just simple Q&A. Because the thing when you say Gen AI, there's prompt engineering that's prompting the user, and the answers are being fed back into the training engine, right? And so people are concerned that in fact the user is, without realizing, providing even more data by being passively answering the prompts, right? There's a whole study on prompt engineers. I think the quick answer is yes, and maybe again a sandbox might be the answer. That maybe the European Union will say, okay, you can do all sorts of Gen AI provided it's within these boundaries.
What I'm trying to say, democratize, is since there is such a big mess of data, in order, to navigate that just by, regular language, you can have access to data,
Yes.
and also based on that data, you can also, with very simple prompts, to analyze those data.
Right. Yes, I think there's, absolutely, yeah.
I want to add what Mr. Lumaki said, that we must also move quickly, because as you can see on the Gen AI, on the ChatGPT currently, they start the marketplace with other third-party LLMs, and now they have thousands of partners. So inside the one LLM, they are trying to connect the data gathering and everything through other LLMs, and they're building their own ecosystem around that. So the biggest problem is also we will compete at the end with that. So it's a matter of how we lost the social part of the user through the social networks. Okay, now all the social data is only in 2-3 companies. Okay, I believe this is also the bet from Europe, because Europe understands that we're losing currently the citizen, the European citizen, from everything. And the only way that we can keep things is our back-end data, the sectorial data that we have. Okay, this is what we own today, that they don't have access. So I believe that I totally believe that we must provide this kind of access and this kind of easy access of the data, because this is how the user, you win the user to be close to you in such models. But from the other side, we must build some value. And I want to add something on the describing about the data and the thing that we have in the previous conversation on the regulation part. The sandbox idea, but also the sectorial need. Again, I'm going to the data spaces, the definition of Europe. Why? Because we have defined in Europe the areas that we have valuable data and we have huge problems that we need. Mobility, healthcare, environment. So there is this kind of defines, and we must go back with innovation and sandboxes, but to go to solve problems. So we must have also a strategy from European that if we invite the ecosystem, we invite the startups and the governments and everything, we cannot speak only for value on the transactional base. We must give also value to the societies through that. So we need that. We are Europe. So this is what also European strategy is based. And based on that and based on these best practices, we have also the mission that we have in Europe that is very, very on the carbonization and everything. So it's very precise. So we have a lot. We have the ESGs of the companies that we can put some investment back on the market to provide that. So we have tools, but we must build the ecosystem around them and the government to try to support it.
Okay, and a final question to conclude the Q&A session, which just came in, is what's your take on the advance of Gen AI, creation of data centers, and at the end, energy consumption? It's been in the news recently anyhow, so I would like to hear your
So
reviews.
you're asking me how many nuclear reactors would I need to run my data centers? That's really what you're asking. So that's a good question. You guys heard about the Microsoft leasing this 3 mile island?
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yes.
yes.
So that's a good question. People like in Australia, because it's a hot place, people there have the idea of creating, lots of solar panels and have solar energy to drive the data centers. But even that's not enough because some of this, I think my thesis is that we will find better machine learning training algorithms that will not be as CPU and GPU intensive.
Okay.
And what I'm really saying is the price of your NVIDIA SOC is going to go down. Okay? So
We'll make a note. We'll make a note on
I'm
that.
telling you now. So if it happens, you've been told.
Okay.
Right? So I think yes, for data centers, we may not need nuclear reactors as much. I think we need to be more clever in the training. And there's some people actually doing research on simplified training models that doesn't require so much data and so much GPU. But that's part of the need for research.
Thank you.
Yes.
Something important is also the strategy, because if you go, there was an interview with the OpenAI founder. It was very clear what he said. He asked him about sectorial part. If you will give, will focus in parts of the data on the provider. He said, no. We want to be trained with all data of all areas, of all sectors. So if you want to build a super brain on the Gen AI part, you need nuclear. If you go to a sectorial or to try, as the professor said, in a more precise stuff, you need a strategy. So, of course, the big hyperscalers, they need to do that because they want to have the knowledge of everybody on that. This is their strategy. It's clear. They mention that.
If I may add one thing, the provenance of data is very important as well, because you could have, you don't know now if the data that are used to train Gen AI models are coming from humans or from machines that are already created Gen AI.
Second order.
So the thing is the provenance of data, and anything that has to do with, I much better rather having somebody saying to me that the answer is based on 90% of traceable, provable data, or if what I'm getting is 5% of, data that are absolutely, no clue of where they're coming from. So this is also another dimension of what is the output of Gen AI.
Dennis asked,
Bootstrap.
yes, Dennis asked for the preparation of this event, the commitment and everybody that we're
yes,
not using.
this is a non-chat GPT panel. Yes.
No,
Or your,
So my answer,
where's the traceability?
I think I was so
Is our work-
offbeat.
our work-
I was so offbeat.
I was
couldn't be.
expecting this question, and I got emails from the 3 people saying me that they're not. So this is, you trust them, okay? You see them, you trust them.
This is the problem that we need tokenization traceability.
I think my technical diagrams are much better than ChatGPT. Right?
So yeah.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.